Howdy, everyone, and welcome to the May CD Cart User Forum. My name is Christy McKinley, and I serve as the National Conservation Desktop Team Lead. Today, you will learn about improvements in our document management system, and you will be provided with a high-level overview of the Conservation Desktop applications and agreements and the Select Application Tool modules and the companion CDAA and SAT reports. We'll have plenty of time at the end of the forum to answer questions, so feel free to post your questions in the chat during the forum. We'll answer those at the end. I also have included a feedback form for you to provide your feedback from today's forum. Next, I'd like to introduce Monica Weimer, who's going to talk about the document management system and all the improvements DMS is making.
Hello, I'm Monica Weimer. I work on the Mission Delivery Optimization staff, which is under the Office of the Associate Chief, and I'm going to talk about DMS. Next slide. So what is CDDMS anyway? You know, I hear a lot of folks say, well, I can only upload documents. It's a document management system. That's not true at all. CDDM is actually an electronic file repository or a case file for documents related to customers. So most file types are allowed. That includes things like zipped shape files you can upload. You can upload PDFs, you can upload Excel documents, you can upload pictures, all kinds of different documents. There's a few file types that are excluded, and mainly it's because of security concerns like executables. But for the most part, CDDM will accept just about any file that you want to upload related to a customer, their schedule, their practices, agreements, etc. Next slide. So this is definitely not a policy discussion, but I couldn't help but put a little bit of policy in there, just a little. So for programs managed according to 440, Part 440, 530, oh my gosh, my mouth. Anyway, there are a minimum number of documents that need to be uploaded to an electronic case file. And you'll see them listed on your screen. They're mainly the documents that are needed to support audits. It helps prevent NHQ from having to track you down at the last minute and say, oh, we've got a request from the auditors. Please upload this big list of documents. With the documents that we have for those audits are already in DMS, it really prevents a lot of work for everybody, and it is required by policy. Next slide. Okay, so one of the key concepts when you're working with DMS that you need to understand is the idea of document types. So when you're uploading a document, one of the first things you need to do is select the type of document that you want to upload. And that document type, say NRCS CPA 1202, determines what actions you'll be able to do once it's uploaded. So can you overwrite it? Can you version it? Can you delete it? As well as all of the information or metadata that needs to be linked to that document so that we can find it appropriately. It also includes what signatures are required and optional. There's a report in Conservation Desktop that you can download that has a lot of this information and a lot of extraneous information too, unfortunately. We do have it on our list to work on getting that report updated, so it'll be a little more user-friendly. But for now, it's still a good source of data. You just may have to hide some columns in order to really get down to the information in it that you want to use. Next slide. Okay, so I have recorded a demo for you. I'm not going to pretend it's live, although I do think I say live a couple of times. So let's go ahead and watch that. We'll go through the majority of the features in CD, and there'll be time for questions at the end, and at the very end of the net meeting, and we'll have some more slides too. Okay, for my demonstration today, I'm going to be using a site called the UAT site that we use for testing new features before they're released to production where you can use them. All of the data that's included in this site is test data, so none of it's real, so we don't need to be concerned about PII. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about is setting document management as your home screen. You can do that while setting your preferences. So click on your icon in the upper right-hand corner, and then click Preferences. Once you're there, click on Home Screen Default and select Documents. I've already done that, so when I come into CD, my home screen is Document Management. It brings me to this Upload Documents General document view. There are several different document views you can access from this screen, and we'll talk about those more later. The first thing I want to talk about, however, is uploading documents from this view without anything loaded into the table of contents. So this is your table of contents. When you upload documents with nothing loaded in your table of contents, it means that you're going to have to search and select each piece of metadata that's required for your document. And I'll talk a little bit more about metadata in a minute. So let's start with an example. So in order to upload a document, I need to select a document type. I can do that either by typing in the box if I know what I want to upload, and it will bring a document to me based on what I type in the box. You can also just click the down arrow on your keyboard, and it will show you a full list of the documents you have available. You can also use the category to filter those documents. I don't use that a lot anymore since this feature has been available where we can type in the box. If I know I want to upload a 1202, for example, I can simply type in 1202 and it will bring me up my options. So today I'm going to pick a 1202 appendix for my example. So this is a document that I need to upload associated with an agreement. So when I upload with nothing in the table of contents, I need to tell DMS everything about this document, including it is a document for CD. Sorry, not for CD, that's managed in CD. I'm going to paste in my agreement number here and I'm going to click search. Okay, that brought up my document or my agreement. I'm going to select my agreement. Now I need to select my participants. I also will need to tell DMS which of these participants has signed the document. This only requires participant signatures. So let's say that Just Let's Form Corp has signed. Okay, I didn't select a file, so let's select a file real quick. And then I'm going to upload. Okay, so each one of those pieces of metadata I had to search for and select. And if I wanted to upload an additional document for the same agreement, I would have to search for it and select that information again. Alternatively, if I want to upload a bunch of different documents for that same agreement, loading that agreement into the table of contents and using an in-context upload will probably save me a lot of time. There's a lot of different ways to get into the right context. You can use the search case files and agreements. One of my favorite ways for DMS is to use the option to see my recently uploaded documents if I've uploaded documents related to this agreement recently. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. This document view does take a little while to load because it's pulling all of the documents that I've uploaded for the past 30 days from a lot of different places in the database. So it does take a little longer to load into DMS than some of the other screens. Okay, so here we are in my recently uploaded documents. And like I said, it's pulling documents from the last 30 days. I can also do 7 days or a custom range. So if I wanted to upload a bunch of different documents for that agreement that I was just working on, I can select any of these hot links to start bringing those things into the table of contents. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Okay, so now that my agreement is loaded in the table of contents, I'm going to go ahead and click on Documents. And it will take me to the agreement view for my agreement document view. Okay, so this is where we start really needing to understand the concept of context. So if you understand context for uploads, you'll understand a lot more about how DMS works for uploading documents. Context is the main piece of metadata tied to a document. So if you were using the Upload General screen and you needed to search for an agreement first in order to upload it, then that's most likely an agreement document. Another way to think about it is the document applicable to only one application or agreement? If so, that is most likely where that document will need to be uploaded in context. So if it's linked to only this agreement, I would come to the agreement document view and upload it from here. However, if a document is applicable to a customer or client, regardless of the practice schedule or the agreement, so think your 1199 or your member information, that would most likely need to be uploaded from the client context because it applies to that client over potentially multiple agreements. Same idea for a schedule or a practice. So when you're uploading documents, you really kind of need to understand that context. We're looking at enhancements to reduce the reliance on context to determine which documents will be available for upload, but it might be a little while before we get those features done. So it's just something to think about going forward. So if I wanted to upload that same appendix from this screen in context, I would click Upload New Document. And you'll notice that DMS already has the information about the agreement loaded before I even pick a document type. Right here. Okay, so I'm typing APP to limit my document search. And it's not limiting it as much as I wanted, but here it is. Here's my 1202. And since I'm in context, if I scroll down, the only things I need to select are the signatures. The rest of this information is all optional. You'll notice that DMS has defaulted in the decision maker as the participant. But if I want this document to show up for both of these clients in their client view, I would select both participants. The participants that are selected in the participants table will determine whether those documents are viewable in the client context for those documents. All right, I'm going to cancel out of that. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the client context for a moment. So if I click on document view and select client, the client view is another one of those views that takes a while to load, and that's the same reason. It picks documents from all over the place and brings them into one view. So you'll notice that in this view, we have documents that are really applicable to many different agreements. And that's for ease of viewing. People were saying that, man, we were having such a hard time trying to find where our documents were. You don't like all these drop downs. So we're trying to fix some of that. And the client view is one place that we're doing that. So if the client is selected as a piece of metadata when you're uploading a document, in that client's document view, all of those documents will be shown. So you can see that we've got a mix here of documents that are linked to the agreement, This one right here is linked to a schedule. Here's some member information that's linked only to the member. So this is kind of a comprehensive view of the documents loaded for this client. However, if I click upload, I'm still only going to be able to upload documents that are only applicable to this client, like an 1199. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to the agreement. Okay, so some pros for uploading in context. If you're uploading multiple documents with the same or similar metadata, that information is going to be pre-filled from the table of contents. It's going to save you time. The main con here is that you'll many times need to search for and load something in the table of contents in order to do those uploads, and you'll need to understand that idea of context. I have an Excel help guide that I put together that's going to help with some of that, and I'll show you that in just a little bit. Before we get there, though, I want to talk a little bit more about things that can be done in DMS. Previewing. So if you click on the little eye icon, you will be able to preview PDF documents. It's limited to PDFs at this time. We are exploring how we might be able to expand that to include some other document types. The little down arrow will let you download this one document. If you make selections in the check mark column, then if you select preview selected, it will preview all of the selected documents, or it will download all of the selected documents. So that gives you the ability to do more than one thing at a time. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about are document collections. This is another place where people are like, I don't like all of these drop downs. What's going on? Well, document collections are really designed to facilitate quality assurance reviews, audits, or simulate viewing your documents in an arrangement similar to a 6-part folder. So let me select one of these. Let's select contract modification review. So it's going to ask me, which modification am I talking about? There's only one here, so I'm going to pick that. And you may think, oh my gosh, where'd all my documents go? Well, it's filtering those documents down to only the things that you might need to see related to determining whether an agreement modification is ready to proceed. So the documents include the modification forms, clearly, but also participant documents. So you can see that we've got some tabs here. If I click on participant documents, now it's going to show me the documents related to a modification for these participants. So these are the client documents. You remember that there's 2 participants on this agreement. So we're seeing the 1199s and signatory information and 1202s for both of those clients here. This is one of the few places right now in DMS that you can see documents related to an individual client, 2 individual clients, all the individual clients related to an agreement without having to do some extra hijinks. Again, this is something that we're trying to help you with, and we'll talk more about that later. But that's the purpose of these document collections. And if I pick a different one, it will filter the documents differently. So again, the participant documents will probably be the same because those are the same documents that you would need to review for a modification or a pre-approved application. But the agreement document list is going to be significantly different. See, now it's showing me the 1202, it's showing me 152, 1155. So that's the idea behind these. Please keep in mind that these document collections haven't been updated in quite some time. I am working on getting them updated so that they'll be a little bit more inclusive. But as of right now, they work really well for agreements that follow the 1202, 1156, 1155, 1245 form collection. Those agreements that are managed in Protrax for the most part, you know, EQIP, CSP, RCPP, land management and rentals, doesn't work so well for some of the other programs right now. But that's the idea behind them. They're there to help you, and they might. Try them out. For some things, they're super helpful. Other things, not so much. Let me go back to my document list to see everything here. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about what you can do in DMS. So the actions menu will tell you a lot about the things that can be done with documents. So lock as final is something that you can select once you have gotten all the signatures on a document, and we want to make sure that it doesn't accidentally get deleted or overwritten, anything like that. Create a new version. What that will do is that will keep the original document and upload another document in addition. Overwrite, alternatively, will basically delete the original document and replace it with a new document. That one's good for a document that has multiple signatures on it. So if you've uploaded a participant signed or a technical signed 1245, for example, and then the client signs it on paper, you want to upload a new version. Well, you don't need to click to keep the original that just has the technical signature on it, because that 1245, the one the participant signed, also will have the participant and the technical signature. So you might want to overwrite that one. Some folks have elevated permissions to be able to delete documents. Many times that is not allowed, just to make sure that we are retaining a full record of the documents that might be needed for appeals, etc. But your state coordinator, for example, may be able to help you delete documents if they were uploaded by mistake. View additional details will let you see some additional details about the document. Edit document details. Let's go ahead and click on that one. Okay, so edit document details will let you make some changes about the document. You maybe add a comment, change the participant, change who signed it. So in this case, we uploaded this document and said it was only signed by Lutz Farms, but in reality, the document was actually signed by both of these clients. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the signature here and say, okay, whoops, I forgot to check that Dennis had signed. So now I'm going to say that he did, and I'm going to submit my changes. Notice that I didn't select a new file or anything here. So I'm just changing the metadata. When I do that, DMS is going to create what's called a new minor version. So you'll see this document right here has 1.1. Basically, that indicates the metadata to this document was adjusted without uploading a new document. Alternatively, you can see this document has 2 versions. If I click on this little caret, you'll see that this document was truly versioned using the actions menu. So the original version of the document is right here. And we also have a new version of the document. The most recent version of the document will always show as the one that is available in the documents table without expanding the row. For those of you who would delete privileges, keep in mind that you can never delete the most current version of a document. So if I wanted to delete this version 2 document, I would have to come down here and promote the previous version. And then once that previous version is now the most recent version, I would then be able to delete it. So just a little pro tip. So those are the differences between overwriting and versioning. If you overwrite a document, let's do an overwrite on this top one up here. So I'm going to overwrite my cart ranking report. I had to re-rank it for some reason. I'm going to choose a file. Scroll down, see if I need to change anything. Nope. I'm going to upload. Okay, so this one, I just did the overwrite action. You can see that it's now version 2. If I open the caret, it's going to say, oh, we didn't have any other versions found. That's because that overwrite action basically deletes and replaces, but we are still noting that it was a new version, sort of for that audit record.
There's a few more things that you can do to make working within the document table a little more efficient. One thing is you can use the column chooser in order to turn off some of the columns on your display. For example, if you're not interested in seeing the internal only column or the schedule info column when you're looking at agreement documents, you can remove the check marks for those and then click Save. Those columns will then be removed from review, making more room for you to be able to see the information in the grid. Another thing that you can do is hover over the border between the columns until you get this double-headed arrow. It's a little finicky, but if you're patient, you can get the double-headed arrow and then click and hold in order to drag so that you can change the size of your columns to see additional information. Another thing you can do is you can click on the column header to sort based on that column header. You can also filter using this little tiny filter icon. And it will shorten your list of documents. Not all of the columns are filterable, but most of the important ones are.
Okay, one last thing I want to talk about live before we head back to slides is that signatures table. So that signatures table has caused a lot of confusion over the years, and so I want to mention it real briefly again. So recently we've made some changes to this table to make it a little bit more clear what you're doing here. So you are selecting the signatures that are present on the document. So if I click this box, it means the document that I'm uploading has a technical signature on it. If I select these two signatures, that will mean that both of these participants have also signed the document. There is a defect right now where sometimes this signatures table isn't being populated. That's why these buttons are here. We're hoping to get that resolved here real soon. Once we do that, we're going to remove these buttons again so that there isn't confusion about when to use them. All right, I think that's all we're going to do for our live demonstration today. I'm going to go through a few more slides. Okay, so I mentioned a help guide during the video, and this is just a screenshot of it. It will be included with the information that gets sent out after the net meeting. This basically is based on the report that I talked about earlier, but I've changed some of the information. I'm hoping to get all of this information actually added to that report at some point. You'll see that the third column over is a column that says context for upload. And so that is the context that you'll need to pick if you have something loaded in the table of contents in order to upload a document that's of this particular type. So you'll see this one up at the top is related to practice. We've got one here that's related to a schedule. This one's related to a client. You'll see all the way down at the bottom, there is one that can only be uploaded related to HEL WC requests. So even though this is actually technically a client document, we have it built into the system to prevent uploading that document outside of that workflow. You will see it on your client view in DMS, however. So like I said, this will come out. It also talks about which of the agreement related document collections those documents are included in. So for example, the power of attorney is included in the pre-approved application review, the obligation review, as well as the 6-part folder document collection on the application and contract tab. So hopefully that'll be helpful. Like I said, we're trying to get to the point where maybe something like this won't be necessary, but for now, I'm hoping it'll help some folks be able to figure out how DMS works a little bit better. Okay, next slide. All right, so we talked about what CDDM is, but what it isn't is it isn't the only place that you can access documents. So particularly when it comes to easement documents, NEST is the official repository for those easement related documents. The only ones that you'll find in CD right now are mainly related to the easements that are managed through Protrax. Farmers.gov also provides customer access to these documents where they can sign, view, etc. Multiple places in CD where you might be able to upload documents or view documents. We are trying to build in the ability to upload documents right in the workflow where you're creating them as we build new features. So you'll start seeing more of that. The ability to upload directly from CART, for example, is one that I saw a demonstration of the other day and was super excited about. It was the assessment, so I've already started talking to them about seeing if we can enable their ranking tool as well. I think you'll really like it. We're building 2 new workflows right now for compliance reviews and the new assistance notes modules, and you'll be able to upload documents directly in those workflows as well. I think those are planned in the summer. The other place, I mean, you still have access to your F Customer Files Toolkit location where a lot of those old legacy documents are stored for customers we've been working with a long time. You may still put draft documents there, things that need to be combined, etc. SharePoint. I mean, I know there are tons of paper case files still out there. So document management system isn't the be all end all. And like I said, it doesn't contain any documents that aren't somehow related to a customer. Next slide. All right, so I got a few frequently asked questions in here. So I hear a lot, I can't access my documents when the case file is locked. I just can't do it. Well, that's not true. You can. When you do your search in the search case files, it'll ask you when you try to open it if you want to open that case file in read-only mode. And if it does open in read-only mode, you'll see the little, it's kind of small on your screen, the little tiny glasses icon that indicate that you have this open in read-only mode. But you can still get to document management while you've got the read-only mode, and the read-only mode doesn't apply to DMS. You can upload documents while you have the case file in read-only mode as well, because the documents actually aren't associated with the case file, which is a little weird, but that's really the way it is. You can also view documents from the client search. That's the one that's got the like 2-headed monster up in the main CD toolbar. If you search for a client up there, you can search for client and you can view and upload documents from that area as well. Okay, next slide. All right, can you view documents associated with canceled or completed schedules or agreements? You sure can. You can do that if you do a search and open that agreement directly from search case files and agreements. There is an option to include completed and canceled documents in the advanced search. So that's something that you need to know, that you need to go to that advanced search to mark include canceled and completed. I think that's where it is. Sorry, I should have taken a screenshot. But you can also view them from the client context. So if you know who the client was, you can search up that client and then view those documents that were associated with that client's completed documents, as long as a client was part of the metadata. There are a few documents that the client is not part of the metadata. Okay, next slide. All right, so enhancements. This is my favorite part. All the stuff we've been talking about so far was work that other people worked on, and I'm just telling you about. This is mainly my my baby here, enhancements. Okay, so we've put out some enhancements to work on improving performance and responsiveness. Hopefully you guys are seeing that. We're not done with that, so we're still working on it. The next thing we're working on is the database. That also slows things down, the way the database was designed back in the day. That's another project that's going to take a long time, but we'll get there eventually. We're also working on implementing enhancements from a user survey that was conducted last fall, and a few things here and there from that have been requested from your state business tools coordinator. So if you want a CD enhancement for DMS, talk to your BTC. There you're in. Okay, so soon, later this month, we are going to be starting to pare back on some of the unnecessary information messages that basically just sort of tell you what's going on, but don't give you any options to do anything. The ones that pop up and you had to click on. Hopefully that will help eliminate a few clicks. And then we're also constantly working on defaulting as much information as we can. So the decision maker in the participant column will also start to be selected to eliminate one more click, because most of the time there's only one participant. So that should help save some work. You can always add to that selection if there are more than one participant, and that's coming out in the next release. Next slide. Deleting documents. So for a while, there were documents that couldn't be deleted by anybody except by sending in a help ticket. We have increased will be increasing the folks that can delete some of those documents, including the HELWC documents that some of them might have been duplicated when we were having trouble with the uploads a few months ago. So find the folks that have one of these roles if you've got documents that need to be deleted, and they should be able to help you out. This is, again, is in the late May release, so don't ask quite yet, but a couple weeks. Next slide. Okay, the agreement search. This is my favorite. Okay, so this is going to be a brand new thing. It's going to be available from the document view. And when you go in, you select search documents from the document view, and it's going to let you put in just a few characters of your agreement number, or the whole thing if you want, and search. The search results are not going to be based on your preferences. So if you are a state user and you've got the whole state selected in your Z roles, but you only have just a couple selected in your preferences to make CD run faster, this will still get them all. If you're a national users, are you out there? Work for you too. All of the locations you've got in your Z roles. All right, so once you've got your document or your agreement in the search results, you'll just click to view documents. It's going to open into a brand new window. So not a modal that's still stuck in CD, but a window that you can move to another screen. Next slide. And it's going to look like this. It's going to give you some information at the top about the agreement, list all of the participants. So if you're looking for documents related to participants, you know who's a participant on the agreement and their payment share. The first version that comes out will likely only be view, but we're also working on the upload versionings, etc. Should be shortly behind it. They might even come out in the same release. They're working really hard to try to get them both done at the same time. All right, next slide. So what's so special about this? You're like, well, you already see agreement documents. But what's so special is the view of the documents that you're going to get. You're going to get all of the documents related to all of the participants, all in one screen, with all of the agreement related documents and all of the documents that are linked to the schedule. So it's going to be a comprehensive view of all of the documents that relate to that particular agreement in one screen. You'll also be able to upload any document. Once that's ready to go, you'll be able to upload any document from this window, and it will pre-fill all the information for you as much as it can. So I think this is going to be amazing. I saw a demo of it today. It's almost done. It's looking great. Super excited. Okay, next slide. It's going to be integrated with ProTrax. So you know that DMS button that right now you click it and it just says, FMI DMS is no longer available. When you click on that, what it's going to do is it's going to open up CD into the agreement search. Your agreement number is going to be populated already, and the search results will be populated already. So you'll just have to click View Documents. One click. 2 clicks, I guess. You got to click DMS to begin with. Next slide. So then you'll be able to see all of your documents just like this. I'm so excited. This is a real screenshot from one of the test sites. Next slide. Okay, OneSpan. So this is actually going to be the last thing that I'm going to talk about today. We're working on integrating OneSpan into CD for client signatures. So right now, a lot of folks use Box to gather client signatures on documents that are already in DMS. The idea will be that we can now use DMS to do that. So we'll send the links to the clients to sign using OneSpan, similar to what you do in Box. And when they sign them, they're automatically going to be put back into DMS for you. So it'll eliminate a bunch of steps. It'll also greatly expand the number of clients who can electronically sign using a relatively easy method. The participation from farmers was kind of iffy, but I think lots of folks will be able to use this and they'll really like it. They can sign, similar to like what you would do for mortgage documents, where you answer a security question and you get a text message and validate that way, and then you can sign them. So I'm really excited about this. When you get the slides for this presentation, there will be additional slides that I didn't cover today that go over a lot of the things that were in the video. So you'll have some additional words for slides along with the video. You will get the video as well. But I'm hoping that all of this will be good reference material for you, and that some of the states can use it to do additional, provide additional information to their users in their state if they weren't able to come today. Okay, next I'm going to hand it over to Kelly Melton. She is going to talk about SAT.
Thanks so much, Monica. Those are going to be some big shoes to fill there. Not sure I'm going to be quite as exciting about SAT as you were with DMS, but we're going to go through this and get some users some information on SAT. So next slide, please. The Select Applications tool, SAT, is a tool that uses CART ranking information and program allocations to assist state program level users in pre-approving applications for financial assistance programs that are selected for funding. So this is a tool that is mostly used at a state level or area level out in the states. It's not a tool that's used typically by national headquarters staff or really in field offices. It's mostly a state level area office type tool. Next slide. So current functionality of SAT. SAT has been around for a long time. Everyone uses SAT, with ProTrax-based programs, ProTrax applications, and we're also using SAT with our CPP 18 in the new CDAA tool that Leo Smock-Randall will talk about next. But SAT's functionality, allows you to pre-approve or undo pre-approvals of assessments that have been submitted through CART. It allows multiple pools to be selected for funding for the same application. It does require pre-approval of an application before the creation of agreement items in CD. And I know that we've had some states ask us questions about, why do we have to pre-approve before we can create agreement items? It's the creation of agreement items when we typically find that we have forgotten something, say in our ranking. Or in our assessment. And so the way SAT works is we do have to go through that pre-approval to select that practice for funding. So that's why you've got to pre-approve first, and then you go through there and create your agreement items in CD. It allows you to view and export practices that have matched the selected ranking pool or all pools that link to the selected CART assessment. It lets you view and export data into Excel, and that's typically the most used function is exporting data into Excel rather than using the reports that have been created for SAT. We'll talk about that in a minute. It allows you to track allocations and gives you flexibility to pre-approve negative balances. So if you're, still waiting on reallocation of funds or more funds from NHQ, you don't have to wait until those funds hit the system. You can go ahead and pre-approve with negative balances as you're waiting, so you're not holding up the process. And you can also access practice schedules through SAT. You can open ProTrax applications or CD applications right there from SAT. Next slide, please. So the way that users get into SAT is they access it through the programs button in CD. So in CD, if you look at programs, you have select applications, you have funds manager, and you have manage CD applications and agreements. And so it's select applications that gets you straight into SAT. Next slide. On this screen is where you're going to enter parameters for a search. So fiscal year, state, program, ranking pool, and category are all required fields in order to do a search. For ProTrax-based programs, the ranking pool that's shown right there in number 1 must be linked to a ProTrax sub-account, which is shown in number 2, that it's associated with. So at the beginning of the fiscal year, someone at your state level is likely to go in and set this up, link the ProTrax sub-account that's associated to that ranking pool. Sometimes they have the same name, sometimes maybe they're slightly different, but they'll do that linking so that SAT can pull information like the fund information out of ProTrax for that particular ranking pool. Selecting all under the category option, as you can see under number 3, will return a complete list of applications that are associated to the ranking pool. So selecting all under that category option will not populate any of the fund information that you can see over there in the top right corner under ranking pool. It's not going to populate any of that funding information with the selection of all. And it's not going to allow you to pre-approve applications with the selection of all, but it does return all the applications that are part of that ranking pool. You have to actually select a specific category in order to take that pre-approval action or see some of your funding balances. Next slide, please. So once you click search, this would be an example of returning an all category where you can see all the applications that are associated to a ranking pool. When you click this, you're going to see an export options. That's under number 1 right there. So if you click export, you'll be able to export all the records that are returned in this search to an Excel spreadsheet that you can filter and sort. Unfortunately, at this time, that export option is only for the ranking pool that you have selected in that search that you're returning applications on. So let's say you had 50 ranking pools in your state. If you wanted to export information about all of your EQIP ranking pools, you would have to actually perform this 50 times. And you'd have 50 spreadsheets that you would have to filter and sort through, to get to the information you're looking for. There's a column picker under number 2 that you see here that allows you to select specific columns of data to view. Different user levels might want to view different data. And so there's a lot of data that's associated to these applications. And you can use that column picker to view just what you want to see. So you're not having, a screen that's junky with lots of information in it that you're not really concerned about. The ranking status is shown under number 3, and it's coming straight out of CART. So this is where it's reading that CART ranking. Only applications that have a submitted ranking status can be pre-approved. So those with a completed status, like that row there on the bottom, will display a blue little information icon that the user, it informs the user that the ranking has not yet been submitted in CART. So anything that's completed, you can't pre-approve. You'd have to go back to CART and make sure that you have submitted that ranking. But if it is in the submitted status, you're able to pre-approve it. And then there's the 3-dot actions button. That's the far right column of the screen under number 4. It allows users to be able to view assessment details that are associated to that CART assessment for that application. And you can also open the practice schedule or open an application from here. Next slide. If you selected the view details from the action button, this is what it would look like. So the assessment details on the left side of the screen is displaying a fully funded application. That means all of the practices in the assessment that were selected for funding matched that ranking pool. So everything that was ranked, that was in the assessment, matched, and that is a fully funded application. The one on the right is a partially funded application. You can see where one practice, obstruction removal, the first practice listed, was not selected for funding. So this means that the practice was assessed, but it wasn't included in the specific ranking pool as an applicable practice. In this case, really, the client would only get 4 out of 5 practices funded that they had applied for, say under EQIP, unless this application was going to get funded through 2 different ranking pools. And so that was what I mentioned earlier about the current functionality. We can fund applications across multiple ranking pools using this system. Next slide, please. So when the user selects a specific category, there's just a little bit different behavior. So here is a search where we selected a specific category, urban farmer, and the fund information will now populate in the top right corner of the screen. So here you see the actual dollars associated to this Act Now High Tunnel ranking pool. The category fund information is not going to populate for ProTrax based applications. So all of your applications that are in ProTrax, they don't actually have funding associated at the category level. They only have funding associated at that ranking pool level because we linked the ProTrax sub-account to that ranking pool. So you'll never see category type dollars here on the top right corner for ProTrax based applications, but we do see that for CDAA, and I'll show you that shortly. Next slide. So when you select a specific category and do a search, this is where you can actually pre-approve applications. So here, you'll see at the top there, I've got a green box around allow negative balance. So if you check that box, you can go ahead and pre-approve applications that you might just not have the money yet for. So let's say, you're down towards the end of your EQIP funds and you've requested additional funding from headquarters. Instead of having to wait on that money to come in, you can go ahead and check that box to allow negative balance and move forward with your pre-approval so that your field offices can go ahead and start working those applications as you're waiting for those funds. You just want to make sure you never pre-approve more than, what you're planning to get into that pool. The red and green icons that you can see right there beside the ranking score, those are used as indicators that where the user can easily see if the application has been pre-approved in the category selected or in another category that it was eligible in. So you can see here a green box means it's pre-approved for this category. And the red indicator is going to say, okay, well, this one wasn't pre-approved in the urban farmer category, it was pre-approved in the non-HU category, or it wasn't approved in the urban farmer category, but it was approved in the socially disadvantaged category. So that means that the application, it was eligible for all those categories, but you're only going to pre-approve it in one of them. Then there's an undo pre-approval. So if you go back to that 3-dot actions button all the way on the far right, we have a fourth option that gets added when you're looking at this category level to undo the pre-approval. So let's say that, you're in the state office and you get a call from the area office that says, hey, we have a field office that forgot a practice. They didn't assess it and they didn't rank it, but it was something that the client wanted, but the application's already been pre-approved. Well, you have to go through the undo pre-approval so that you can set it back to the submitted ranking status there. In order for them to go back into CART and make the adjustments to the assessment and the ranking that they need to make. Once they've made those adjustments, then you can go back in and pre-approve again. But again, these are all actions that can only take place when you select the specific category, not when you're just using the category of all. Next slide. So RCPP 18 is currently the only program running through Conservation Desktop Applications and Agreements, better known as CDAA. Again, Leo is going to cover more specifics of CDAA, but for SAT, these applications just behave a little differently, just slightly differently. So funding for CDAA applications goes through CDFM. That's the Conservation Desktop Funds Manager. In CDFM, funds are put into spending plans that are actually broken down to the category level. So CDAA applications actually have money at that spending plan level, which is what we would say is the ranking pool level. And then those monies are also distributed down to the category level. So CDAA ranking pools, they're not linked to ProTrack sub-accounts because we're not running them through ProTracks. So we're able to see the category funding on the right side of the screen for the CDAA applications. So there you can see all the dollars that are populated. It shows you your remaining balance and balance after pre-approval actually at the category level. The rest of it functions all the same. So the only difference is for CDAA, you see funds at the category level. For ProTracks-based applications, you only see it at the ranking pool level. Next slide. There is a report section that was developed for SAT, and you can access that through the report functionality in CD. So again, at the top right corner, the blue bar, there's a reports button, and that lets you access really all reports that have been developed for CD. But if you go to the select application reports over there on the left-hand side and click that, next slide, you'll see that there are currently 4 SAT reports. Now the Act Now report, I believe, is going to be turned off soon to some accuracy issues with the data that we've seen. Hasn't quite worked out right. So I think that's going to be turned off and not displayed for users in production anymore. And then there are 3 other reports available: the application search, a detailed SAT report, and pre-approval totals. Next slide. This is an example of what the detailed SAT report will look like. So again, it's kind of like the ProTracks-based reports where you select your state, you select a program, then you can select the ranking pool status, the ranking pool assessment status, a ranking pool, and a category. Now, if you have a lot of ranking pools and you try to select all categories to get one report of all of your categories in a ranking pool, it could bomb out on you. It might not make it all the way through processing because it could have just too much data in it for the system to handle. So sometimes, it's not going to return information unless you break it down a little bit more. It'll just really freeze up. I personally think this is why most users stick with the export functionality in SAT, because these reports behave, a little differently. They're a little sensitive in how they can process data. I know that we have discussed over and over again making improvements to these reports, and we haven't quite decided on the direction that we're going to go yet with the CD reports, but it is something that we discuss frequently, and it's something that we do know that we need to work on. So next slide. Some good information about upcoming functionality of SAT. We've been working on new feature development in SAT. In fiscal year 26, we're going to be adding a new allocation modal. And this is something that we've been very excited about. We're going to hold it until the beginning of the fiscal year so that we roll it out right at the beginning for states to be able to take full advantage of. But this new allocation modal is going to give users the ability to track ProTrack's allocations at the category level and also track prior year funds. And so, we know that states are having to keep so many side records in order to track category type level funding for ProTrack's applications, as well as trying to keep up with prior year funds that are being used. And so we've developed a way that'll allow states to go in there and be able to track those funds. It'll have an export feature with it, so it can be exportable to Excel. And hopefully it'll keep you from having to, keep up with all the side records that you've been used to keeping up with. But I think the biggest thing that users will love is the bulk export that we're trying to do. So remember I said, if you have 50 ranking pools with lots of categories, you're going to have to do one export per ranking pool, and you need to have 50 spreadsheets that you're trying to manage. So we have a team right now that's working on a bulk export that's going to allow you to export all of your ranking pools for eQuip at one time. So it would be based on year and program and state, but you won't have to go down to that ranking pool level. Normally that is a search that would freeze up the system because it's a lot of information that's being processed, but we do hope that that is going to just make everyone's lives so much easier. So with that, this is my last slide. And next up, we have Leo Smock-Randall, who's going to talk about conservation desktop applications and agreements.
Thank you, Kelly. I'm Leo Smock-Randall. I work on the policy division up at the programs branch. My main focus is in software development. I actually work alongside Kelly Melton and have been for many years now working in the CDAA functionality area within CD. Next slide, please. So what is CDAA? What is Conservation Desktop Applications and Agreements? It's a tool that's been built integrated into Conservation Desktop. It's an agreement or contract, whichever word you want to use. It's a development management tool for agreements with the intent ultimately of replacing our existing software systems for contract management, including Nest and ProTracks. Next slide. So CDAA has been in development for several years and has been incrementally built. And so we've added functionality quarter after quarter, year after year, through a variety of updates and releases. Right now, you can create and manage your applications, and primarily that's all for the RCPP program, or Regional Conservation Partnership Program. That's the sole program right now that is running through CDAA. We do integrate with conservation plans that you develop in Conservation Desktop, and the intent here is making sure our agreements stay aligned with the conservation plans to support accurate records for the conservation that's getting contracted and implemented on the ground. We integrate with cost data, which is published by our PSA tool, or there are cost lists you can create in CD for certain easement programs. They're using the ones that make outside of the PSA tool, and you can create your agreement items using those cost lists. We integrate with Conservation Desktop Funds Manager, and The Protract-based agreements, their funding in connections with FIMI CDAA uses CDFM to support accurate financial management and tracking of our monies. A note right now, and a development that's been ongoing over the last several years, has been getting us to a place where we have all the functionality needed to do all the main functions of an agreement. And while we were developing that, we were doing all manual obligation outside the system. So at the moment, you're managing the record in the system, but still doing the obligation and payment actions outside the system. And we needed that until we had all the internal controls necessary to be able to turn the switch on. We also have roles-based management that's enforced for allowable contract actions, including the required separation of duties for various obligation, modification, and payment activities. Next slide, please. As I said, we've been developing over many years now, and within the agreements, we can manage them, doing all the typical actions, modifying them to reflect changes in the planned work, changes in participants. That was added I think just last year. The item modifications themselves added this year. We can record and process payments for completed work. We can track client data, and we can update and create and select various vendors associated with the clients, including assignment vendors, as we need to create those that we'd be using for agreement payments. We also store and access agreement data. Part of those controls were about building out necessary audit information, audit logs, that type of thing, to be able to access information, not only for anyone pulling that data, but also if your customers calling and wanting to know where things are at with various actions like mods or payments. We also have reporting functionality that will be addressed next by Mike Larson, related to CDAA agreement data and NCPP specifically. And we're also integrating with easement case file so that in desktop, you can have easement stewardship activities and maintenance occur after an easement closes and the agreement itself has been obligated and paid out. Next slide, please. Some upcoming functionality. We are nearing the finish line to be able to use the integrated obligations, and that's a direct connection to FIMI via the CDFM, and that'll be turned on and will occur once all of our internal controls are in place and basically pass the test. We also plan to bring in additional conservation programs beyond our CPP, and that'll be implemented in a phased approach. Next slide, please. I'm going to take you on a tour of the various interfaces, screens, and places that we use to access CD and kind of where you'd find some of these main pieces. Under the program section, we will be able to navigate to CDAA. So the concept here with this application process is it's all under one place. It's all within Conservation Desktop. The one pane of glass concept has been around for a while, and application agreements are managed within the context of a practice schedule and the associated structure that goes with that in Conservation Desktop. There are two main functional areas within the agreement itself, and on the left side of the table of contents, you'll see both those, the eligibility and application information, as well as the manage agreement items sections. I'm going to next slide, take us a little walk through what those areas include, where you can find various important information for managing an application and agreement, and how you would kind of go through some of those steps. To begin with, applications are all created via a Conservation Desktop request. The existing process uses either a request that already exists, and so you can see here, you can view requests and you're not on, or you can create a new request. The add application action is available based on that request under the actions menu by number 2. It's important to note that since we are all integrated within Desktop, this is all within the context of that case file and schedule that's associated with those requests. And so the county and service center that are tied to that request, tied to that schedule and case file, are the county and service center that end up associated with your application. Next slide, please. So once you're within the application and/or agreement itself, there's those two sections I mentioned, eligibility and applicant information. And on this first main page, you're going to find a summary. And this summary is actually included on both main pages and in a few other spots throughout the workflow. Summary has some general information, that can be pretty helpful for quick reference. In the first column under number 1, there's high-level agreement information like the state and location, the program, what type of application it is, information about ranking pools and the status. In column number 2, there's a bit more specific agreement financial information. This would include the status of the agreement itself, the obligation amounts, any modification or payment details if they're in process or completed, as well as the period of performance, which includes when it was obligated and when the agreement expires. In the third column, there's additional information and more client-level details, things about eligibility, applicable overrides, and vendor information to have quick reference to see what's the status of the agreement, status of vendors, that type of thing. There's tabs along the bottom near number 4, client, land, and program, and those pages are interactive, the tabs are interactive, and use them primarily during the application development process. They get locked down after that once an agreement's active, but you can make changes to them in modifying the agreement. Next slide, please. So on the first tab, the client information here, we use this to manage and view client information that's associated with the agreement or application or partner entities for easements, for example. This can include information about the eligibility, payment shares, landowner information for easement, as well as that vendor information. And near number 1, you see clients eligibility gets pulled in. It's actually pulled in from Farm Service Agency, but other criteria like limited resource status or beginning farmer are all managed manually. That would also be with respect to payment shares, land ownership information, that all gets set by the user. The overall client eligibility status gets set based on rules that are currently managed in Protrax Fund Manager that one day will be shift over, but this also eligibility can be overridden in Protrax Fund Manager as a policy. On number 2, you'll see a nested entity membership structure here. So when you have an entity client, the member information does get pulled in for that entity. So you can see that nested structure, what participants are there and what their shares are, what their eligibility information and status is to help make informed decisions about what to do with the application or in the event of a mod. And by number 3, there's our actions menu. This is used throughout the agreement to make changes to things like that client information, as I mentioned, or to create new vendors. And it also helps you move the application through the steps you need as you're moving on its way to obligation, or if coming back during a mod to make changes to some of this information. So you can pull in clients from the Conservation Desktop case file. Clients that are part of the case file can be added to the agreement or application when it's being created, or through the agreement during a modification. Next slide, please. The next tab we have here is the land tab. This is primarily set during the application phase. You could update it during a modification if needed. The land eligibility gets set manually when you're first making your application. It's based on applicable program requirements, and so that's going to vary, and the user would need to know those before setting that. Easement agreements do also include information here once an easement closes to show the closing date and closing acres associated to that agreement. Next slide, please. Final tab we see is the program information on this eligibility information section. Also, it's set primarily during the application phase, but some of the items could be changed during a mod if needed. Program eligibility is also set manually, the yes or no checkbox, and that's done during the application phase based on various program requirements. The project ID, you see an arrow pointing there, that can be entered manually when you're first making an application, but it does get updated and set based on the current RCPP project that's used to pre-approve in SAT. So whichever project used to pre-approve an application does set the ranking, the project ID associated with that ranking pool and project. Next slide, please. The second main section has a lot more activity that you're going to be using throughout the life of the agreement. This is the manage agreement and items section, and it's used to both process the application, but also to administer the agreement throughout its life. This page includes the same summary that we found on the other main section. It also has an actions menu on the far right there that is used to manage the agreement. This helps you move an application along through status changes. It also is used to reserve funds and obligate the agreement. And then once the agreement is active and obligated, it's used to certify items, move things through payment, as well as creating or managing modifications. Same section here has tabs along the bottom. These are interactive and used similar fashion to view information associated with the agreement and take certain actions on that, and helps you see what's happened throughout the life of that agreement. Next slide, please. So the first tab is the Agreement Items tab. It has information that's useful to just a quick glance and also make reference on what's happened within the agreement. The first column or sort of section of columns in number 1 has item status. These roll up based on sub-items. Each row shows applicable item number. It has pertinent practice information. What's the practice code, narratives used, and components used in the payment scenarios. The section 2, sort of in the middle there, has cost data. This includes rate, cost types, item costs as a total, and if payment caps are used, those will be displayed as well. The cost rate and the cost type will vary by program and by agreement type as well. And the third area on the far right has payment status and applicable payment amounts to see the amounts paid, the status of a payment as it's moving through the process under review or approved or has been paid. The adjustments to items via payment or mod affect the totals displayed. So you'll see the total displayed in the item and obligation summary section. That'll change over time as you do modifications to items or modifications, or once you make payments, and if the amount is less than the full amount, you'll see the summary section will update about the obligation amount. Next slide, please. For the obligation tab, this is really just reference data for the agreement. It's based on the initial application where it shows who took what steps moving an agreement along that application from start through obligation, and when it was and who did those actions. It also shows a snapshot of those original obligation amounts and the date it was obligated. This is static information. It's just used for reference as needed throughout the life of the agreement. Next slide, please. The payment tab here is the information on this tab will only populate once payments are made and then subsequently with each payment. Each payment itself has an application number, and that information includes what type of payment, if it's an invoice, and the status of it at the top there. This can be expanded. Near number 1, there's a little kind of caret or chevron. You can click to expand each individual payment application and see information about the payees or the clients that are receiving funds. When I say payee, that's the client that's getting funds, clients that have payment shares. You'll see the payment amounts displayed, and this is nested under each payment application separately. Number 2 section, sort of in the middle of these columns, again, has client or payee vendor information, and it shows the payment shares. So if you did have multiple participants on an agreement with payment shares, you'd see them all stacked up here, and you can see their shares and amounts that are associated with each payment. On the far right there, under number 3, there's the payment amounts and and it has details that show specific amount to each payee or each client, if you will. For example, maybe 2 different participants, one's payment went through, and so it got paid status, but maybe one had a bank account change and it might be rejected. So you'll be able to see that information here down to each individual client to be able to track what's happening associated with that payment. Under number 4, this is another sort of nested structure item. It just shows you associated with this payment what sub items were included. So that you see, what items were paid as part of what payment. And then there's audit log, as I mentioned, some of the things we built in over time to track various actions, who did what on this payment. For easements, this will also include actions related to payment liquidation when there's an advance payment. And this also has a button next to it, you see resubmit. That would become active if you had a rejected payment. Maybe you needed to change some bank information before you can resubmit. That would have to be changed and funds returned. But that lets the user take that action themselves once that information is corrected. Next slide, please. And the last tab here I'm going to show is just related to the modifications tab. So this information, similar to payments, will only populate as those actions are taken. So as modifications are completed or created or approved, you'll see those added here. Under the first number 1, you can see that sort of chevron mod number 1. Each is nested under this sort of expandable, collapsible section. And it shows right along the top there, you'll see information about client signature dates, approval dates, cost changes. So what was the initial cost? What was the final cost as part of this mod change? In this case, there was no item change, so the cost is the same. But if there were increases or decreases, you'd see that in the final cost there. Number 2, we see the updated information that's included in the mod. It's separated by section. So when you're doing a modification, you can make changes to expiration dates, you can make changes to clients, and now just earlier this year, we added the ability to make changes to agreement items. Each of those has their own nested sort of expandable structure. You see a little caret next to that expiration date. You can expand it. You can see the summary of details. What was the before and after? So that's the same for all the client agreement item and expiration date changes. You'll see what the value was before, what the value is after. And you also have a small modification basis, and each of those are unique based on what was being updated as part of those changes. And here as well, under number 3, you see that audit log button. This again can be selected to open up details about who took what actions as part of the mod and when those actions occurred. And next, I'd like to introduce Mike Larson, who's going to be talking about the CDAA and RCPP reports. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Larson. I'm the acting branch chief for the projects branch within the Financial Assistance Program Division. And if you're using CDAA, as Leo just explained, to do RCPP implementation, you're going to likely want to be able to use the CDAA and the RCPP reports. Next slide, please. So both reports are a great resource to manage both land management and rental and easement agreements within RCPP, and both provide a different level of data depending on what you're looking for, and that's what I'll go through next. Next slide, please. So the CDAA report has a lot of information. I've listed a lot of it here, not everything, but if you're looking for specific things, like you need to be able to search and report some information by congressional district, or you want to know what contracts have been paid out for a project, you could do searches like that. This report is best for managing applications and agreements at the contract level. It's all rolled up, and anything information within there is summed. You do need to understand that this report is going to give you duplicates. The duplicates can be for a application ranked in multiple categories. It can show for easements both the entity holder and the land holder. So just know that about the report when you're looking through it and using it to analyze data. Next slide, please. The RCPP report is different in that it shows at the sub-item level. So if you have a contract with 10 CINs and 15 sub-items, the report is going to give you 15 lines for that contract. So it's best for looking at the contracted items and scenarios. It shows you differences between land management and rental costs. It shows you the specific payments, statuses, and amounts for a CIN, ranking score. It also gives you more information about the practice activity and planned extent, etc. So a tip to know for this report is the drop-down options are only going to appear if there's data. So I'll explain that a little bit on the next slide, and we'll jump into a video demonstrating how to access and run both reports. I apologize, I skipped the slide. It's important to understand that there's data that's not in these reports. Deceased participants is one. We don't want any improper payments, but there's not a report that's going to show you deceased participants. It does show you that information in the CDAA module, so it's important to be looking for those types of things when working through payments. Other things, AGI non-compliance is not there, state con waivers are not in there, non-compliance agreements can't be entered in currently, and so they are not reported on. There are some other reports that are useful to get to some of this information and other information that's not in the reports, and that is the quality assurance report is a great report for our CPP activities, as well as just using the search and export feature from the search agreements and applications and agreements within CDAA itself. All right, so next slide, please. And this is the video that is going to go through and show how to access and use the system.
Once I'm logged into Conservation Desktop, I can find the reports and run them, the CDAA and RCPP reports. I'm going to come up here to the reports icon. Over on the left, I'm going to find CD applications and agreements. Click on CD applications and agreements. Okay, for the search parameters, RCPP 18 is the only program that can be searched using this report. I can search by fiscal year. I'm going to change this one to FY23. I can search by state. As a note, these reports are not role or entitlement based. It's going to take a minute to update the county and service center for just Iowa. I can use the report to narrow it down if I want to look at specific program components, enrollment types, workload prioritization tool results, etc. For this example, I'm going to come in, I'm just going to look for the active contracts for RCPP 18 in fiscal year 23 for the entire state of Iowa. Hit view report and see I can come here and export the report. Just going to minimize this so that not to record PII. You can see all these columns here can be useful for searching and categorizing and managing your contracts and applications. It's got obligation date, expiration date, program component, enrollment type, so you can distinguish between your RCPP land management rentals versus the various easement types. In addition to client name, it also has client address, city, state, and zip code, so that can be used if you need to prepare mailings. It has agreement status, historically underserved information. If you need to look and want to do work with ranking or ranking pool categories, that can be useful. Your FEMI document number, estimated and actual costs that can show if you're at payments. Now remember, this report rolls it up at the contract level. So this is going to sum up all of the payments that have been made on that contract. It's got congressional district, agreement acres. You may find that the data in this column may not be complete. That is because this information is coming from the manually entered field within the CDAA module itself for agreement acres, and if a planner didn't initially put in a number or put in an inaccurate number there, that's what's going to be reflected. That can be updated through the use of a modification. It shows easement closed acres and closing date for those easements. And then, you know, it also can get you HUC 12 crop and livestock information. So that is the CDAA report. Let's go and look at the RCPP report. I'm just going to close that, come down here to the second one from the bottom, click RCPP, RCPP. Okay, so similar search parameters, just in a little bit different order. Let's go back and look at 23 again. This time I'm going to choose the state of Kansas. It's going to take a minute and update the county list and service center list again. And one thing to note on this report is that if there is not data based on the previous search parameters, then the following will not show not contain data. So for example, if you're like, well, this isn't all of the counties in Kansas, it's because there's not data for that county in Kansas for fiscal year 23. So let's go back. It's most of the search parameters all the same, so I'm not going to go through those again. I'm going to come down, active, and I'm going to look for expired and expired complete on this report. Review report. Same thing, I can export them. And there's other things here where I can look at all of the CINs for this contract. So you can see the same agreement number has 14 CINs. Right there. So that I don't show PII, I'm going to minimize this one again before I get over to anything other than the name. So same thing, fiscal year, program, it's got agreement number, item, and sub-item. It's going to show you each level there. Practice activity code, the extent unit of that. So is it acres? Is it each? Those types of things. What's the component name and the component amount? Planned extent, applied extent, the unit cost and share rate. The payment amount, if it's paid, if there's been a payment on that. And remember, this report is showing you at the sub-item level. So this is the best report to come and look for to see what particular CINs on a contract have been paid versus not, looking at contract statuses. Continue on, it does show enrollment type, priority phase, all of those things. These two columns are unique to this RCPP report. This column is going to show all those activities with the RN code for your rentals. And this one's going to show all of your standard practices, enhancements, those types of things are going to be totaled into this column. So this can be useful as you go through your project management. If you're needing to balance the budget of your RCPP project with land management versus rental activities, this can be useful there, particularly once agreement items have been added to a contract. That's when or an application, that's when it's going to populate here. So you can use this tool to search for applications if you're really needing to make some choices between funding contracts based on the amount of land management and rental activities that you have, if given those are all rolled up into one particular category and you can't manage them that way. This report does have project number, ranking pool information. If it's an entity held easement, it's going to display the type 4 supplemental agreement, project agreement number here. It's going to give you a ranking score, more information about the payments and the BOC for that particular line item, and then the WBS code for that item. And that is the RCPP report.
All right, thank you. Go to the next slide. And with that, we're done with our presentation, and I'll hand it back to Christy for questions and answers.
All right. We do have a lot of questions today, so thank you everybody for asking questions. So some of this may be a little impromptu, so we'll just kind of go with it. I think we do have plenty of time here, but we'll go through as much as we have and then see if there's other things we need to cover. If not, we may end a little bit early. All right, so I'm going to go through a couple of questions that came in on assistance notes. And so the first one is, if you have time, could you go over how to make an assistance note, a Con6 note in desktop like we do for a new customer? So the answer on that one is we currently don't have any ability to create assistance note for a new customer or a non-USDA customer, but guess what? We're actually building out a new assistance notes module right now that's going to allow you to create assistance notes for our non-USDA customers, new customers, and upload documents to DMS. That assistance notes module is coming out later this summer. We will have lesson plans, training information that we'll share with the state business tool coordinators when that functionality is released. And we are going to cover that as an overview of assistance notes, the whole module, because there's a mobile piece for assistance notes coming as well in the September CD Cart user forum. So that is coming, so stay tuned. The second question that came in is that we are going to be sharing these slides. So we got a question if we'll share these slides. So yes, as soon as we're done, probably tomorrow or Friday, we'll get the list of participants, and then I'll email out the slides. We'll have the videos that we'll post on We Are NRCS. But I'll put the link basically to where we're posting the documents on We Are NRCS webpage or SharePoint site. And then the partners will also share the slides as well as the video. And then Monica mentioned she had some other reference materials. So any other reference materials will be shared at least by next Tuesday. Kind of depends with the holiday, how long it takes us to pull everything together. All right, let's go into some questions for Monica. So Monica's got quite a few questions today. So we'll start with the first one. And I don't know if we have the screenshot that, is Molly going to show a screenshot on this one? If not, we'll put it on the slide deck. But what was the rationale for removing the document dropdowns?
Okay, I don't see the screenshot yet, but there we go. All right. So the document drop-downs have not been removed. I promise they are still there. The down arrow that we normally associate with a drop-down on a user interface, it's actually not part of the newest functionality that we use for creating user interfaces for CD. So when you want to see the drop-downs for document category or document type, you just click in the box and then use that down arrow on your keyboard and it will bring up the list. It might take a second the first time to populate the list, but they're there, I promise, both category and type.
All right, thank you, Monica. All right, next question for Monica. Can you use the document upload that was presented first, no client selected, when the case file is locked or in use by another user? Is this a benefit to this method over opening the case file?
So for the most part, you should be able to upload documents either using the general upload or by loading that case file into the table of contents in read-only mode. Either one of those will work. The new agreement search, when that comes out, you'll be able to upload there if the case file is locked. There is one exception for the functionality right now. So CD applications and agreements, you can actually bring those into the table of contents if the case file is locked. So that one, you are going to have to use an alternative method to be able to upload those documents when the case file is locked. But we're looking into ways to see if we can make that possible, but we just don't have a firm timeline on when that's gonna be able to go out.
All right, thank you, Monica. Next question for Monica. Why is the metadata needed when we have AI that can identify and organize the documents and attach metadata automatically?
Oh, yes, yes. I would love to be able to bring AI in, and we're actually looking into it. Up until recently, there were lots of limitations on the use of AI in government applications. So some of the technologies still require waivers and pilot projects before we're able to implement them and have them approved for widespread use. With the current administration's focus on bringing in new technology and AI, we are looking into it. I think there is a lot of room where we could use optical character recognition to pull that metadata out for us, so we don't have to associate it manually. So we're hoping to get there. It just might take a little bit more time than we might like.
All right, thank you, Monica. Yes, we are doing lots of testing on AI, and so be looking for that. Those things are coming. All right, so I got a couple of questions I'm going to answer pretty fast. One was, any chance we can start using or adding CD notes when somebody else has the case file locked or open? And so that is one of the great things on the new assistance notes module. It does not require you to search and open anything in the table of contents. So a case file can be locked by someone else, and then you can go in and create notes for a customer, a case file schedule agreement, or HEL wetland compliance request. A lot of new things coming with that. So really excited about when that comes out later this summer. And then we did have another question that wasn't related to DMS. So this one was about our user preferences, and that's on when you're searching for case files, is there a way to set your all preference search by default? Currently, I can only set one county. And so the reason for that is Desktop was developed for field offices to be able to default their service center they work in primarily. And so that way, when they're doing their case file search, creating case files, we use conservation products. It just helps us default in that service center they're working in. We can't really set that default service center for all service centers or all counties in your state for performance reasons. And so us as national users, we go in a lot of times and just update our preferences for what office we're working on at that point, and then go do what we need to do. So that's the reasoning behind that. Okay.
Remember that new agreement search will allow you to search based on your entitlements rather than on your preferences. So that might solve some of that for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. We do have several other pieces that do use Z-roles preferences, so we are trying to move into that for some of the new things we're working on. So good point, Monica. All right, looks like Leo, are you going to answer the next one? I've got Leo's name on there. So this one, hopefully it was okay with this. The other day I was unable to access the RCPP file, was locked by someone else. I could only get in there by asking them to unlock the folder or the case file.
Yeah, thanks, Christy. So at the start of my presentation, I did talk a little bit about how we're integrated, and although we've been building slowly, incrementally over time, that does mean that we're finding some things like this as we go along. So the CDAA agreements are basically stitched in with the case file and practice schedule. So in this case, probably someone had the case file open, had a lock on that case file. And so when that's the case, you can't open the agreement, because to open an agreement at this time, we require that you open up the associated client, case, and practice schedule that they're tied to. And so we do have a feature to be able to get around that. You have to have the user either manually click close case, or anytime they log out of CD, if they have a lock on a case file, it will release. But we do have a feature on our backlog planned to allow folks to open a case file and an associated agreement read-only. You can do that right now if you just were opening a case file by itself. If it was locked, you'd see the option to open it read-only. We were going to add that ability in, so when you're opening an agreement, you'll see that option as well. And so we do have that in our backlog. I don't have the release date yet of when that's coming out, but that is planned so that folks can get in and still easily, check on something, maybe a status of something, review, or get into documents associated with the agreement and be able to look at everything associated with it in the UI. Back to you, Kristen.
Thank you, Leo. All right, last question for Monica. With the new OneSpan signature option, will the user have the option or have a OneSpan license, or will everyone be able to get signatures?
So unlike Box, you don't need a license to be able to use OneSpan. Any document that allows for client signature will be able to be sent to your clients. And then it will also work for entities, so that you can send the documents to signature to someone who has the ability, the authority to sign for the entity. And the agency will pay for the OneSpan use by the number of signatures we actually obtain. So it's a little different method for enabling access, which should eliminate the need to have those licenses. I don't want you to get too excited about this feature. I mean, I'm excited, but the very first implementation of it will only allow us to send one document at a time. So it'll be great for 1245s, but might not be the best for getting signatures on obligation packages because, you know, we might need 3 or 4 documents all to be signed at the same time. So we might still be better off using Box for that right at the beginning. We do plan to follow up like pretty much immediately. As soon as we get the one document working, we'll start working on being able to send out multiple documents, more similar to what you do with Box. But it's going to be a phased implementation like a lot of things. We got to make sure we can get it working first and then add some complexities to it.
All right, thank you, Monica. I've got 3 questions for Kelly. The first one is, will CDAA eventually replace Protrax?
So, Chrissy, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this question, but yes, there is a plan to replace Protrax with a more robust and up-to-date system. CDAA, it's still a work in progress. We're still building and working through those workflows. And, you know, it's really been first built to manage RCPP 18. So once that workflow has been polished and it passes an internal controls review, the agency will be able to bring more programs through that system. There's no set timeline though for when we're going to decommission Protrax. You know, Protrax has been around a long time and it's kind of our lifeline right now for Farm Bill programs. So have a set timeline on when we're going to decommission that. It'll probably be a slow rolling thing over time. But software development is still underway to achieve the agency's goal to replace it.
All right, thank you, Kelly. And the next question for you is, would the bulk export also work for CSP?
Yes, so the plan is for the bulk export to work with any program that's running through SAT. So the team that's working on that future work right now is trying to build that bulk export for all programs that flow through SAT.
All right, and last question for you, Kelly. Did I understand that selecting the category all would not show the ranking pool funds?
So if I said that, I must have misspoke, but selecting all under category will populate ranking pool funding information that's shown in the top right hand of the screen.
All right, thank you. I've got a question for Leo. How do you do a RCPP contract review in CDAA? Generate a CPA 13.
Hey, thanks, Christy. So in CDAA, I think it was just earlier this year, maybe the end of last year, we actually added in the CPA 13 and CPA 153 for non-compliance. Those are in conservation products now. And so it's sort of partially automated. You'd go into the conservation products menu in the case file with your agreement loaded in the table of contents. So once you have your CDAA agreement open, you can go into those conservation products, select your CPA 13, and then some applicable information gets auto-populated. So it'll pull in the agreement items for your agreement. It'll pull in the information of the client and the agreement number and such. But then you will manually select what's the review date. You'll enter, there's a text box available so you can enter the things about upland revision needed, that type of information, things that are behind schedule. And so that auto-populates some of the information from within the agreement data, and some you still would manually enter and generate that, and then either upload to DMS or print out and send off. I don't know if that's actually covered. I went and checked real quickly. I don't know if that's in the lesson plans though. So we'll make sure that gets added if it's not. Thanks.
Yeah, all right. Well, glad someone asked that. Mike, do you mind taking a question on reports?
Not a problem.
Okay, I do have a question on RCPP and CDAA reports. We noticed that some of the agreement items are not making it from the managed agreement items case file for some of the active RCPP contracts onto the RCPP report. The particular contracts for those items are showing on the CDAA report. Any idea what could be causing some of the items to be missed?
So there was a defect that was causing agreement items to not show on the RCPP report if you weren't using a workload prioritization tool. And so the report was not returning results that were null if for the data in the workload prioritization report or the priority column. That has been addressed and fixed in either the last release, or I even think it was the previous release. So if you haven't looked at it for a while, go back and make sure that it's still doing if it's still doing this. It's either that defect was reverted back, something is causing it not to display, or it's a different issue. So please work with the appropriate, your business tool coordinator and the cadre in identifying that and file a ticket if it's necessary, if it's still occurring. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And the last question I think is related to the case file search, and it's will the agreement number search work in the case file search page for RCPP eventually? And I know that we've talked about adding that. We're making changes now to updating the customer search to making a unified, what we're calling a unified client search. You don't have 3 different customer types. And so we've also looked at potentially upgrading the case file search because I know that's one of the enhancements that states have asked for. It's just a matter of priorities and how soon we can get that update in our case file search. I don't know if anyone has anything else to add to that. No, I don't see anything. Okay. I believe, oh, another question just popped in. Sorry, Mike, this one's for you too. Is there a CDAA report similar to a practice report in ProTrax? Basically a report that would help manage all their active contracts and agreements based on a practice plan date.
So, I mean, you can see planned date from the RCPP report. Also, the quality assurance report, which isn't unique to RCPP, but it'll have all the RCPP data in there, and you can see things like the planned date for the practice instance, and some other sort of practiced instance data that might be useful for that particular case.
All right, thank you. And that looks like we're out of questions. So thanks everybody for putting all those great questions in today. Thank you for attending today's CD Cart User Forum. And especially thank you to all of our wonderful presenters on giving us great updates on our business tools. I will be emailing the information out. The feedback form is on the Q&A, but I'll also send that out to you along with all the links to the slides, videos, and we will send the Q&A out. Those are posted on the We Are NRCS SharePoint site, as well as shared out with our partners. I hope you can join us at the next user forum, which is going to be on July 16th, to learn more about the environmental evaluation, HCL wetland compliance request, and the new compliance reviews module. Until then, thank you and have a great day.